Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts to improve your management skills and to grow your business. Pause the video right now so that you can grab a notepad and a pen, because I want you to commit to jotting down something today that you will implement today, something actionable. I need you to implement something in your business today. We only want to spend time discussing business insofar as it motivates us, inspires us, or stimulates us to make positive change. So pause the video, grab that notepad, and then let's get started. Today, I want to talk about this concept of the unique value proposition, or the unique selling proposition, some people refer to it as. What is unique about the product or service that you offer for your business? If you haven't taken the time to define that, that's what you need to spend your time doing today. And if you have defined it in the past, I still want you to spend some time today redefining it. You need to periodically look at this on an ongoing basis. You need to sort of stop the presses and revisit the notion of your product or service and what it is that makes it worthwhile. What is it that attracts customers to your business? That's what it's all about. If you don't have something that's attractive to customers, you're not going to be viable in business. You're not going to continue to attract customers, conquest new customers. You're going to fail to retain your existing customers. And your unique selling proposition can become diluted over time. It can be watered down. It can be that competition catches up to you, or something that was unique to you at one point in the past is no longer unique to your product or service. Or it can be that something that was unique to you is no longer considered a benefit, that maybe conditions have changed in your market such that what it was that really separated you from your competition is no longer really a competitive advantage. So it does behoove you to periodically revisit this concept. And the term unique value proposition, unique selling proposition, don't let these things intimidate you. I mean, in business, it's all about logic. So just think logically, what is it that would attract a customer to your business? So ask yourself, what is my product? What is my service? Because of the fact that you know about it, or you're so used to it, since you've been in business perhaps for many years or several years, you are susceptible to the problem of no longer paying attention to what your customers pay attention to. You sort of become desensitized to those things which are most important. And that's why getting back to basics and fundamentals, which is what these videos are meant to stimulate you to do, to go back to the basics and ask yourself and look at your business through the lens of, or through a fresh perspective, or through the lens of a customer, through the lens of someone who's looking at your business new. You have to do that. If you're not really equipped to do that, maybe you don't have the time, you should spend some time evaluating your priorities and look at our video where we talk about how you should spend your time. But it also may be beneficial to involve others, some other stakeholders in your business, some friends, family, trusted confidant, somebody that can give you some insights into your products or services and tell you what they think is good or maybe lacking about those products and services. We always have to revisit the notion of value, especially when we're talking about our unique value proposition or our unique selling proposition, those things that will enable us to sell our product or service. Is the value. And those 4 ways of increasing value are ever present and should be ever present in the front of your mind and ever important. So let's review those again, because when you are going to document your unique selling proposition, your unique value proposition, this is where you start. You look at, well, what are the component what are the components to value? And the first one, and these are in no particular order, so don't get hung up on the order, but the first one is convenience. So let's look at your product or service. Is it convenient? How do you move your product or service, deliver it to your end consumer? Whether it's a product or a service, there has to be a mechanism through which your customers, your prospective market, actually receives the benefits of your product or service. And what is that? And is it convenient? Really take a look at that. And when you're looking at it, you can ask yourself, is that unique in any way to how all your competitors deliver their benefits to their products, of their products or services to their customers? If there's nothing unique about the way you do it, that can be okay, but you have to ask yourself if you actually have a competitive advantage in that case. And the answer is, I think, inherently no. If there's nothing unique about the way that you deliver your product or service to your customers, then it's probably not a competitive advantage in terms of the convenience. So let's look at convenience and ask ourselves, how can I communicate to my customers the ways that I'm unique? Actually, let's get into communication in just a moment. It's separate. The first thing we need to do is we have to explore the idea of why we are unique, what it is that we're doing that separates us, differentiates us from the competition, and then we'll figure out and talk a little bit more about communicating that. You have to first understand it yourself, and then everybody within your organization has to understand it, because who is it that is selling your product or service? Your organization. You have to have buy-in throughout everybody, all your stakeholders. So first, it starts with you. You have to sort of define these things. So convenience, what is it that makes things convenient? A lack of waiting when a customer has a demand for your product or service because it solves a need or fulfills a need that customer has. They want it perhaps immediately, or they want it within a particular time frame. Maybe they don't want it today. If you have a service and maybe you have to visit your customer's home or their place of work, or they need to visit your place of work, whatever it is, you need to figure out what is the most convenient thing for your customer. It can be your location. It can be your flexibility of scheduling. It can be that you offer several options for the customers to fit into their schedule. Maybe you have contractors as part of your business, and you don't just have one single person, but you might have multiple, these options of scheduling. So think about convenience and all the things that go into the logistical process of delivering the benefits of your product or service to your customer, and how can you improve that? And most importantly, how can it be unique? Uniqueness in and of itself is not enough. It has to be better. So we're saying unique with the inference that it's not only different and novel, but that it is better. It represents greater value. So more convenience. Do you offer more convenience? If not, brainstorm ways that you can. And again, we always talk about the idea that these notions aren't binary. It's not like there's an on or off switch to whether your product or service is convenient or not. Instead, there's a spectrum, and you want to try to move toward the ideal notion of convenience from wherever your current state is. So think of your current state, your desired state, and ask yourself, what would I need to do to make something more convenient? So convenience is the first one. The second one we'll talk about is the customer experience, which has got some overlap to convenience, I will acknowledge, but it is different. You can actually have something that's somewhat inconvenient, but a terrific customer experience. Conversely, you can have something that's very convenient and doesn't have a great customer experience, except for the convenience part of it may improve the customer experience. So these are unique concepts, or rather, they are different concepts, convenience and customer experience. Even though there's overlap, those are two separate things, and you should brainstorm those differently or separately. Okay, so the notion of the customer experience, sort of spell out your whole process. When a customer first engages you or you first reach out to a customer, what do they experience? Do they interact with people, or is it simply with your website? Are the people that they interact with friendly? Do they feel comfortable? Is it awkward for somebody? Think of an experience as enjoyable as even a trip to the spa, where you're maybe getting a massage, and that would be kind of thought of as an example of something that's done on vacation or periodically done. Somebody's going to pamper themselves, and it's a really enjoyable experience. Yet the customer experience can be great or can be not so great. A person whose first time to go and getting a massage, if what they encountered was a massage therapist who maybe is presumptuous and thinks they know exactly what to expect and doesn't sort of relieve any concerns they have and sort of tee them up, can diminish the customer experience. Conversely, somebody who spends some time making them feel comfortable and letting them know, here's what's going to happen. Have you had a massage before? These types of things are really important to the customer experience. So it doesn't matter that the definition of your product or service is something that should be enjoyable, or conversely, with respect to all the dentists out there, that's often thought of as something that's not an enjoyable experience. And really successful dentists go out of their way to try to mitigate the fact that so many people don't enjoy the experience, the customer patient experience at the dentist. And what they do is they offer things like headphones so that you can listen to some relaxing music or your favorite music. They may give you a remote control and have a television on the ceiling that you can watch. Sometimes they have scent marketing, so there's pleasant fragrances, so you're not exposed to maybe the drilling, the smells and things that come through. So there's all sorts of ways to improve the customer experience, and it's through friendliness. And try to involve the senses, especially if you're interacting in the physical world. The taste, the feeling, the touch, the smell, the hearing, visual aspect of your experience. What is it that the customer has? Something visual, just like having a clean office environment. Maybe you're an accountant and your clients occasionally come by your office and you have somebody at the front desk with a cluttered work area and everything, and that can diminish the customer experience. It can lower the value that you offer in their mind. They might think that this person isn't very organized. So everything counts. So spend time asking yourself, again, on that spectrum, how can you improve? How can you improve? How can you perpetually refine the customer experience? So we've talked about convenience and customer experience. The next one we want to talk about is quality. Whether you have a product or a service, the quality that you deliver is paramount. People really expect quality. And there may be instances where you have made a decision to compete based more on price, and therefore you cut corners on quality. But what I would recommend is instead you find ways to become more and more efficient. Check out our video on the 7 or 8 forms of Muda and the elimination of waste, so that you become more and more efficient and drive down your expenses so that you can compete on price that way. So look at ways to increase and improve quality. And it may be the quality of the raw materials and ingredients that go into your product. It may be the tools that you use that give more consistent results. It may be the processes, the logistical processes and recipes that you use to deliver, to create your product or service. It may be that you have special training, specifications, certifications, and things like that, that your contractors or your technicians, depending on the type of business you're in, that they go through. So based on that education, they are able to solve problems that others could not. So you have greater quality in that regard, fewer defects, and that your customers are really impressed. Brainstorm, again, think of it as a spectrum. Any incremental improvement that you can make in quality matters. And once again, I need to remind you, think of your competition. You have to improve and become better than your competition, at least in one of these 4 ways, if not all of them. And what I had recommended earlier is that periodically you come back to your unique value proposition and reevaluate and give yourself sort of a score and brainstorm what we're talking about right now to see how you can continue to move along that spectrum, continually improve, because they have a shelf life. Your value proposition will become, as I said earlier, diluted. And then the last one is pricing. So we touched on that a moment ago. How can I drive down my pricing without necessarily driving down my profit margin? You may make the decision to diminish your profit margin, and that's okay. That can be a very powerful management decision. You may decide, I'm okay with a lower percentage profit because it's going to drive greater dollar figure worth of profit. And your overall, the way you measure your profit in terms of dollars may be increasing over a specific period of time. That year after year, you keep earning more profit, and that's what it's all about, even though your profit margin may be eroding a little bit. So you want to manage those things, and it's perfectly okay to make the conscious decision to make less profit as a percentage, as a margin, but more profit overall through, say, volume. And you're going to beat the competition that way. You're going to pick up market share. So think of the various ways that you can impact pricing to gain a competitive advantage. And you have to glean insights into what your competition is doing out there. You need to know what your competition is charging. So you might mystery shop, you might do some surveys, and there's a variety of ways. Sometimes there's actual data that are available online that you can pick up, and you might be able to visit competitors' websites, find out, get some market intelligence as to the prices that your competition are charging. And one more thing about competition, remember that your competition is not just somebody who does what you do. I mean, after all, we're saying you should have a unique selling proposition. So ideally, you're doing something that is quite unique, and maybe it's not easily mimicked within the marketplace, and there's not a lot of people doing exactly what you do, but that doesn't mean you don't have competition. It just means there's alternatives to what you do for people to spend their money on. It's about solving problems, right? And so people maybe engage your product or service to fulfill a need that they have, that if you didn't exist, what else would they spend that money on? That's your competition. So evaluate that. Make sure you understand that you do have competition, and expand. If you have a hard time figuring out who your competition is, expand your definition of what is competition so that you can make sure that you're offering better value in each of these 4 ways than your competition with that broader definition. One more thing about uniqueness, and that is, have you come up with a business concept that is so unique, your product or service is so unique that customers don't really know they need it, they don't understand it? That's another part of the definition of your unique selling proposition, is figuring out exactly how will you explain and communicate your unique selling and value proposition to your customers so that they understand they do need it. If you are entering the market with something that is completely novel, and there are several examples over the years, in particular technology over the last number of years, that these are novel concepts that a person was not familiar with, and they had to introduce the concept to customers so that they would want to engage it and try it. There has to be a low barrier of entry. So think about that. You've got to spend some time figuring out, how do you define it so that you can now communicate it. And that's the last thing we want to talk about, I alluded to earlier, and that is your marketing strategy. That's just another way of saying, how do I communicate all of this information that you spent today figuring out and brainstorming and documenting? You have to shape that into a way that can be easily communicated to your target market. Of course, you have to define who your target market is. And what is the best way to communicate that? Is it some kind of traditional digital marketing? Is it content marketing where you create content? Are you going to use images, slogans, catchphrases, audio messages, video messages? What way? Is it just a website, or is it going to be a salesperson involved? All of these things you have to ascertain for your business. What is going to make the most sense as the most effective mechanism? And that mechanism I talked about in another video that will impact your pricing. If you decide to communicate your message through a salesperson versus more virtual or passive sales process, that's going to impact your expenses. But your marketing strategy will be formulated around how well you're able to define and communicate, and how long it takes. Does it take a half an hour to communicate what it is you offer? Or can you do it in the proverbial elevator pitch in 30 seconds? Can you communicate to a customer? Or is it obvious just by looking at a photo? You know, maybe you run a restaurant and you have a photo of just a mouth-watering dish, a specialty that you create, and another photo that shows the ambiance, that improves the customer experience, all those various ways. So think for each of the things that we talked about, your convenience, your customer experience, your quality, and your pricing, how will you communicate all of those things to your customer? But you're going to focus, of course, on those things where you have a competitive advantage. That's the idea I wanted to leave you with today. Hopefully you've taken down something that you can implement today. Spend some time on this. And I would recommend that you go into your calendar and put a recurring reminder, at least annually, but perhaps monthly. You could spend a little bit of time on this and asking yourself, what is unique? And do I need to change my marketing message? Do I need to improve in one way or another? And we want to always be improving, of course. So leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this. What are the most effective ways you've used to try to define your unique value proposition and then communicate it to your customers? Let's learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.